All right. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to the Philly Foursome podcast. This is our fourth episode. We're cruising along. We have some other good podcasts coming up in the future, but we're going to hold you in suspense with that. I want to welcome in our Philly Foursome team members, Mr. Michael Little from Clubhouse 54, Braden Shattuck, Director of Instruction at the beautiful Rolling Green Golf Club here in the greater Philadelphia area, Mark Sheftick, Director of Instruction at Sunnybrook Golf Club and owner of the Sheftick Performance Center, and a Philadelphia PGA legend, our good friend, Mr. Dave McNabb, who is the head golf professional at the awesome Applebrook Golf Club in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, gents. And Dave, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Thanks. Great to be on with you guys.
Yeah. So we're excited about the podcast for today. Our discussion and topic is PGA Club Pros competing in golf's majors. So this is a very cool one. Again, for some of you, the listeners that aren't overly familiar with the PGA of America and how it works, we are separate from the PGA Tour. The PGA of America comprises approximately 28,000 PGA Club Pros around the country and all different aspects of the game of golf, from general managers to club reps, but largely PGA Club Pros at green grass facilities. And so the PGA of America has 41 sections throughout the country, and each section will have its own section championship. And then the top finishers in the section championship qualify for the PGA Club Pro Championship. And then that comprises 312 players. And then the top 20 finishers at the PGA Club Pro Professional National Championship qualify for the PGA Championship, which is our major championship. It's one of golf's four majors. Obviously, we have the Masters, and then we have the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, hosted by the United States Golf Association, and then the Open, as some of us in America call it, the British Open. And so what happens is really the best opportunity for most PGA Club Pros, the better Club Pro players in America, to get into a major is the PGA Championship, because it's our major, and the top 20 finishers at the National Club Pro get into the PGA. And so when we talk to the guys today about playing in majors, it's largely centered around the PGA Championship. And so Michael Little and I are on the outside looking in. We're just like the little peons on tonight's episode. We're going to play host. And two of the Philly Foursome members, Mark Sheftick and Braden Shattuck, have played in a major, and our very good friend and special guest, Dave McNabb, has played in 11 majors. Dave has qualified for 3 PGA championships, 2 U.S. Senior Opens, and then a bunch of senior PGA championships. Mark, you competed in 3 PGAs, and Braden, you won the Club Pro National Championship last year in 2023, which qualified you for last year's PGA Championship at Oak Hill. And so that kind of gets us going into what we're going to talk about, these guys being able to play and compete and experience major championships. And so obviously, number one, it's just a fun thing to talk about. But number two, for our listeners, hopefully there's a couple nuggets that you can pick up that will help you with your game. Why don't we start with you, Dave? So you've played in 11 majors, and you said you're going to be playing in your 12th this year?
Yes, in May.
Okay. So tell us about, is the first one that you competed in the 2013 PGA?
Yes.
Okay. So where did you play the National Club Pro that year? Where did you finish? And then kind of where was that PGA in 2013, and kind of your first experience with this.
So the National Club Pro was at Sun River out in Bend, Oregon, or actually Sun River, Oregon, actually. Finished tied for 9th, I believe, out there, which qualified me for my first PGA, which was at Oak Hill, with Mark, ironically enough. Kind of interesting that all three of us that have played in majors on this podcast have all played a major championship at Oak Hill. I actually played in the senior PGA there as well. So, but it's a pretty cool championship golf course. Braden saw a little bit different golf course than Mark and I did. They redid it, I think, just before last year's major. But really good spot, really great test of golf. I never saw a rough that deep when I got to a golf course in my life. And by the time we got there, but so yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience.
Cool. And Mark Sheftick, your first PGA was in 2009 at the historic Hazeltine Golf Club in the greater Minneapolis area. Just what were some of your initial thoughts? You know, what did you finish in the National Club Pro to get into that PGA? And just kind of a couple basic thoughts before we really dive into it in terms of how you felt when you qualified and, you know, those emotions and how that experience was with a top finish at the PGA Club Pro Championship.
2009, that was the first time I ever played in a National Club Pro. It was at New Mexico at Twin Warriors. I finished second, and congratulations to Braden for getting it done there. I did not. It was, I think I went out there with a different mindset because I didn't know really what I was getting involved in. I know the National Club Pro is the majors for club pros. I had no idea there was 300 and some odd players. And just a quick dumb story. I played in a practice round with this guy, I randomly get paired up with, and probably the 5th or 6th hole, I walked over to him, and nothing flashy. And I walked over to him and I said, "Have you ever played in one of these before?" And he looked at me, and Scott Hebert said, "I won last year." I said, okay. So that's a good icebreaker. And I played, the rest of the round with Scott. We had a pretty good laugh at it. And it made me feel very confident because at that time I was hitting the ball better than Scott. And I can compete out here. And I ended up finishing second, lost to Mike Small, and qualified. When I qualified for Hazeltine, my first PGA, I mean, it's hard to put in words the emotions. It's a long week. It's a grind. And then when you cross the finish line, yes, you're trying to win a tournament, but then the perks that come in to qualifying a high finish for a National Club Pro, PGA Cup points, and getting in the PGA was just incredible.
Super cool. And Braden, obviously you're the young whippersnapper in our group. And last year, you won the National Club Pro, really with not too much attention on you, right? You didn't even get any TV time until the last 5 or 6 holes, right? And then all of a sudden you snatched the trophy and headed up to Oak Hill for the PGA Championship.
Pretty much. That was exactly right. I think all of my friends were texting me during the tournament. They're like, "Dude, what the heck? You're leading and you haven't been on TV once." And I'm like, "Look, man, I don't know. I'm a nobody, so they're not gonna show me." And yeah, I don't think until maybe 13 did they show a single shot on the last day. So I don't care about any of that. I won, so I don't really care if they show me on TV or not.
Yeah, I mean, how did you feel after winning that? And then when your mind went to the fact that you knew you were going to play in the PGA, and it also garnered 6 PGA Tour starts.
Yeah, I'd say winning it was just like a sigh of relief almost, and like a huge victory for me personally. To be able to win a tournament that big. I mean, we all know what you get out of winning that tournament. So I think that makes the pressure of winning it even greater. So, but it makes the reward of of overcoming that challenge even better. So knowing that, you know, I was going to be able to play in Oak Hill was like the first thing in my mind. And then once Oak Hill was over, I was like, wow, I still got 6 more PGA Tour stars I get to play in. But oddly enough, it was interesting afterwards, especially since they changed the PGA Tour calendar year. So typically after you win the Club Pro, you can play in your 6 starts in the wraparound season starting in the fall. But I didn't get to play my first one until this past month. So it's been, you know, almost 10 months since I won before I had my first start. So it was definitely interesting.
Yeah. Dave, how was your game? Did you ever feel like your game was really good heading into any of these events? Was there one or two in particular, like I feel like I could do something here?
Yeah, I would say probably 2017. I was playing my best golf. I lost that year in a playoff at Sun River, and you know, I played in 3 majors that year. It was just an awesome year, and the PGA Cup team. It was crazy, and I was playing some pretty good golf that year. You know, and the interesting thing about playing in these things, I think, you know, and Mark and Braden will attest to this. Like, you go there with this outlook, like, yeah, you know, if I play good, I can make the cut, I can compete, and then you get there and you start playing, and you know, you're playing okay, and you're getting lapped. I mean, it's a totally different animal when you get out there and play against these guys. It really is, and no matter how good you're playing, I mean, last year was my 11th major, and it's the first cut I made, which was disappointing to play that many and not make a cut. But you also have to realize, like, you see those guys on TV and they make it look easy, and you think, you know, I'm playing good golf. You know, I'm one of the better players, you know, in my section. I'm one of the better players in the country. Not to sound whatever I'm sounding like, but you know, at the end of the day, that's a whole nother level that, you know, that's tough to attain. I mean, you know, what Michael Block did last year was incredible. Ben Kern a few years ago, I think, finished 25th out in St. Louis. But that's a rare feat. I mean, you know, you can play some really, really good golf and still not come close to making a cut.
I have a question for the 3 of you. So you all had a chance to win the PGA Professionals Championship. Could you each walk us through what it felt like down the stretch? Braden, you know, again, congrats. You did get it done. And how did each of your mindsets change, or how were they different, or were they the same coming down the stretch at the national championship?
I'll start. So I'll just talk about the final round. I think the most intimidating shot was the very first tee shot because I had the lead. One of my focuses of that was not to get ahead of myself. Once I made I played mediocre on the front 9. I think I turned it 2 over par, and I just got calm. I think your better player really relies on a good solid pre-shot routine. Try to take one shot at a time, really map it out. And then the back 9, I found it and I started to stripe the ball. And when it came down to the very last hole, what I was most proud of is I hit all the shots I was supposed to hit. The last shot, I probably hit the best drive of the day. I just rifled it right down the middle. And then I had about 170, 178 to the pin. I knew I had adrenaline. I just roasted a 8-iron dead solid. I thought it was going to be absolutely perfect. It landed past the pin. It rolled to the back fringe. The mistake I made was there was a lot going on. I second guessed. I should have putted it. I decided to chip it. I thought I hit a pretty good chip, nipped it a little too good, checked up, and left myself a 5-footer and didn't make the putt. But I was, I think as the round got longer, I started to play better. And little by little, you start forgetting about all the things that are going going on, and it was just, you know, I know it's a cliche, one shot at a time, but I felt really, I left there with a huge burst of confidence that my swing held up under the most pressure I've ever faced. I've hit all the shots. I just didn't get it done with the flat stick.
Braden?
All right, I'll go next since Braden won, and we'll leave the glory to him. So, Mark, I remember watching that last round, and I just remember that second shot you hit into 18. I'm like, that's freaking perfect. I mean, I saw it land. I'm like, you know, he's going to end up in a playoff in this thing. I mean, you couldn't have hit any better shots coming down the stretch than you did, and you know, unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work out. That's freaking golf. But my final round was a little bit different. I started, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 shots back, and I was probably 2 or 3 groups behind the leaders. And in the final group was Mike Small, who had won 3 Club Pros, Rod Perry, who had won 2, and I'm going to forget who the other player was, but they had won 1.
Matt Dobbins?
It was Matt. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Matt won 2, Rod had won 1, and Mike had won 3. You know, and so I'm a few back, and at that point, my focus is, you know, to just try to get, you know, stay in the top 20, kind of play good golf, move up the leaderboard, don't shoot myself in the foot. And I think I shot even or 1 under on the front 9 and made the turn. And those guys they weren't playing great. They were all, you know, a couple over, maybe 1 or 2 of them was more than that. And I made the turn, and I'll never forget. I said to Donnie, who was caddying for me, who you guys all know, I'm like, let's just go post a number on the back 9 and see what happens. He goes, how about if we just take this one shot at a time, to use a cliche? I'm like, all right, whatever you want to do. So made a great shot on the first hole, which is my back 9, and hit a great putt, miss anyway. I'm not going to run you through the whole gory details, but got to 17, made a birdie on 15 to take a 1-shot lead. Really good birdie putt on 16 that just missed. 17 was a hard shot. I had a wedge shot, but it was right in between clubs, and it was into a howling wind. Trouble short, trouble long, and hit a shot that just got through the green up against the fringe and didn't have a great lie, and kind of hit a squirrely little chip, but made a good 5. And then hit a great drive on 18, great second shot, just missed about a 25-footer there, and went into the playoff, hit every single shot the way I wanted to hit. One of them didn't come out the way I thought it was going to on the second playoff hole, and missed about a 15-footer for par, and that was the end of it. But same kind of thing, you know, that Mark was talking to. Hit a lot of good shots. You know, the 1 shot at a time cliche really does apply. You know, every time you hear somebody talk about that, you think, well, that's, you know, yeah, everybody says that, but it really is true. I mean, that's just, you're so intently focused on what's in front of you at that moment. If you go and stray, you know, from that at all, I mean, you're going to be looking in the rearview mirror. So I mean, Braden was a perfect example of that. Last year had a really tough shot into 18 and hit it in a really hard spot to get it up and down, and hit an unbelievable pitch shot, and rolls in a, you know, 10-12 footer for par to win. I mean, you can't get ahead of yourself. You can't let it, you know. But Braden, tell us about it, man.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
I mean, I would say the biggest thing coming down the stretch of a tournament like that is, you know, the change in adrenaline and nerves that you get when you know you're very close to the end and you've got a couple of hard holes. I mean, I can't speak for you guys, but personally, when I'm sniffing the lead and it's late and you know you have a chance to win a huge tournament, my heart rate goes up, the adrenaline starts pumping, I get a little bit nervous, you start seeing red, your eyes are pulsing. I mean, I didn't have any nerves really whatsoever. I had some on the first tee shot, and then I didn't have nerves until probably 15 is a really hard par 3 that was 240, and I hit a 3-iron to 3 feet. I missed it. And then 16, I made a 25-footer for birdie. And as soon as I made that 25-footer for birdie and I took the solo lead, that's when my heart rate jumped to like 170. And I was like, okay. So I immediately walked off the green to the next tee and just stared into the woods and just breathed and just like tried to bring my heart rate down, because you can't shot with your heart rate pumping that high. It's just, you can't do it. It's probably not going to go very well. None of us ever practiced with heart rate that high. So all I could do was just calm myself down, which I successfully did. I practiced that. I practiced calming myself down and bring my heart rate down. So I'm very good at it. And, that was the key for me before each shot, making sure I was calm and I didn't have too much adrenaline pumping, because I don't want to pull 9-iron from 160 and have it go over the back of the green because I'm too amped up. So for me, managing those nerves on those holes was crucial. And the biggest change is that, like, especially on 18, I've got 220 odd yards into 25-mile-an-hour wind, below 4-iron right to a tough spot, like Dave said, and hit a good chip, and 12-footer, and I can barely even see the golf ball because, the nerves are wild. They're like things you don't experience. But all I told myself was, look, man, you've had nerves like this before. Maybe not this severe, but you've had nerves. You've had putts on 8 to win tournaments. You've had putts in playoffs to win tournaments, and you've made them even though your hands are shaking and you can barely see anything. Just put the putter down, aim it where you need to aim it, and make a stroke, and whatever happens, happens. So I learned that, despite the increase in nerves, you can still be really successful out there, just kind of trusting the process and trusting and leaning on things you've done before. So it was a really neat experience to have, come through regardless of that.
Cool. So Mark, I'll start with you because of the three of you, you were the first one to play in a major. So in 2009, as mentioned, that was your first PGA championship at Hazeltine. Then in the next year, in 2010, you played at Whistling Straits, and then in 2013, Oak Hill. So all three of you guys have played in a major at Oak Hill. When you first went there, Mark, what was your strategy and your preparation? And then, so that's the first part. And then the second part of the question is, what did you learn from the first PGA and how your strategy and preparation changed going into the following year?
I'm not going to lie to you. My first PGA I played in at Hazeltine, it's hard to really tell you what emotion. There was so many of them. So I showed up Sunday, and you're basically allowed to play practice rounds Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So there wasn't a lot of players there Sunday. Monday is kind of when it hit, because that's when all the players showed up. And you're on the range. I was hitting balls right beside Ernie and Sergio, and it was just kind of looking around. And I went up to the short game area, hitting pitch shots beside Rory, and there was definitely a little bit of a starstruck wow factor. And then when I went out and played some practice rounds and more getting used to the galleries, when you play in that type of arena and you have that many eyeballs on you, it's definitely, the physical side of swinging a golf club is definitely influenced by what's going on in the head. And just, I think getting the practice rounds in with that many people watching was a good thing. So I sort of got through that. And then just getting, the hardest thing for me was getting a good night's rest. The mistake I made is I probably overdid it. I had a hard time leaving the golf course. 18 holes every day, which was a mistake. I over prepared, over practiced, and I didn't get tired, but I probably put in way too much work than I should have. To me, it was more of getting my mindset in a good place to where I feel comfortable. And probably the number one thing I've learned, I played with Will McKenzie and Oliver Wilson. Oliver Wilson played in the Ryder Cup, and Will McKenzie won a PGA Tour 2 years prior to that. And I shot 76 the first round. And this is going to sound bad, but this is what happened. The very first hole, I started on number 10. It's a short dog leg left. I don't know how the hell I got the ball airborne, but I did. I'm going to be honest with you. So I kind of heel cut something out there, but it was a short dog leg left. Oliver hit a 5-wood. Oliver Wilson, cold chunk, flat pulled a wedge into the water. It was one of the worst golf shots I ever saw. And I looked over at my caddy. I said, I'm the one who's supposed to do that. So when I saw him hit that bad of a shot, it took a lot of pressure off me. And so I knocked on the green, made par, went about my way. Will McKenzie played he did not play well. And after the 36 holes, I missed the cut. I shot 76, 70. I think I shot a pair of 76s. But after I got done playing, I was having lunch and Will was sitting beside me. And I asked him a question. I said, hey, Will, let me ask you a question. I said, I want to ask the question where it's not insulting, but I said, you were not playing very well out there. Why did you stay so aggressive? And were you concerned about the galleries? And he looked over at me and he said, hey, Mark, who finished second in the Masters this year? And I thought about it. I said, I really don't know. And he said, exactly. He said, you only remember who the winner was. People want to see the tour players, but they really have no idea unless you're Tiger Woods or a big name. But he said, you're only putting pressure on yourself. All that you can't be worried about what the galleries are thinking about. And also he said, I did not play well in the front nine. So I got to put the pedal to the metal because I can scrape it around and make a bunch of pars, but I'm probably not going to make the cut. And I'm already working on some swing thoughts for next week. So listening to his mentality that he's already preparing for next week, he's not playing well. He knows he's probably not going to make the cut. He might as well put it all out on the table, and he's already working on next week, and he's not worried about what the gallery's thinking. Now, I kind of took that as a little bit of a learning lesson, saying, why am I so worried about whatever? First of all, no one knows who the heck I am. They know, if they do know, I'm a club pro. I'm not supposed to win the tournament. And then as I started to play more and I saw that the best players in the world do miss shots, they do not hit the ball perfect, but they know how to flat out play and they can get the ball up and down. It was I took those key things away from the tournament. And, when I'm striking the ball well, no, I'm not as long, but just learning how to play in that type of arena is one thing. Feeling like you belong in that type of arena is a mental thing that you have to get over. And then after that, you just got to go out there and give it all you got.
What did you do differently the second year? So, because that was in 2009 at Hazeltine, and then you came right back and played in the PGA the next year in 2010 at Whistling Straits. That was the whole Dustin Johnson bunker,
Yep.
mistake event, if I'm not mistaken, right? So,
Yep.
But anyway, so what did you do differently in terms of preparation? Maybe whether it was beforehand or just when you got there during your practice.
So as you get a little smarter, now the first thing I would say is Whistling Straits is not a good golf course for me. That's a golf course for Braden. It was 7,600. It was a long golf course, a lot of wind. And so knowing that the distance they were going to play the golf course, I tried to focus my practice on the clubs that I was going to be familiar with. So, at the time I was the director of instruction at Marion. So most of my practice was at Marion West, which is a very short golf course. So I thought hitting a lot of drivers, a lot of long irons was essential to prepare for Whistling Straits. Hitting a bunch of 9 irons and 8 irons, was a waste of time because I wasn't going to utilize those clubs that much. So I tried to spend a lot of prep work with a lot of long irons, hybrids. If you think you're hitting those type of clubs in the greens, you're probably going to have a lot of long putts. So I did a lot of lag putting, a lot of pitching and chipping off the greens, and just really try to focus on strategically, where I needed to navigate the golf course. Also, the thing about Whistling Straits was there was a lot of blind shots. It was very difficult to get, committed to certain lines, like hole number 8. you're down here and the fairway's up here, and all you can see is the green, and it's just mapping out the golf course that round and really commit to hitting the golf ball to not seeing the lay of the land was also a little interesting. But, I took the mentality of I need to practice the clubs that I'm going to utilize the most. I need to work hard on my short game and a lot of lag putting. And again, that's my second PGA I played in. Again, the nerves were still there. I didn't overdo it with practice. And just actually, I tried to relax and really get the prep in, but really try to enjoy it.
So to put it into context, just so the listeners can kind of have a reference, what did you end up shooting, and how did the 7,600-yard golf course, how did you fare playing a long course? I mean, even for tour standards, 23, 13 or 14 years ago, that was still kind of a beast, even for some tour players. So how did you finish, and what'd you shoot? How'd you finish, and how did you deal with that length?
So it was a very interesting week. So the first round, I was supposed to tee off at 7:30. There was a massive fog delay and did not tee off till about 1:00. So we finished the round, but the afternoon round did not finish. So obviously they had to finish the second day. They had to finish their round. There was another fog delay. So I did make it to Saturday, just did make the cut. And I remember one story I'll tell you is the first round, when we got to hole 16 was back dead into the wind. Maybe it was 15. And they were getting ready to blow the horn, and I had the tee, and I was hustling to the tee box. Ben Crane grabs my arm, and he goes, I think you want to go back to your caddy and get another golf ball. I looked at him. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, it's a 500-yard par 4, and we're dead into the wind. So maybe you should go back and get another golf ball and not tee off. I'm like, got it. Yeah, we'll tee off in the morning.
Wow.
But yeah, I shot 78. I think I shot 78, 81. And again, that's just going to be a hard golf course for me because, just length with greens that firm and that fast, plus wind, plus hazards everywhere. And even though the Dustin Johnson thing about grounding the bunker, at the starters at both tees did make an announcement. There were so many bunkers out there. If it was a sand-based surface, deem it as a bunker. Do not ground your club. So there was plenty of awareness that there were a lot of little pot bunkers, and a lot of galleries were standing in those little pot bunkers.
Interesting. Yeah, that was a whole interesting, twist of events coming down the stretch. So, Dave, same thing for you. You actually played 2 majors in a row, back to back, in 2013, your first one, and then you were back at it in 2014. I remember you telling me this story years ago when we were playing one of our local Philly PGA section events, that first year you overdid it, right? You were so excited and you went out and just played it. You hit a bunch of balls and you practiced, and I think you played like 18 holes every day, if I'm not mistaken. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. So like when you look back at the first one in 2013 and then how you change your preparation in 2014, what did that look like?
Yeah, pretty similar story to Mark. The first year, obviously you're all amped up. You're in a totally different environment. You're trying to take it all in. And that's kind of what I tried to do. I really tried to take it all in and, watch some guys hit golf shots, watch how they practice, spend a fair amount of time at the golf course, whether I did play 18 holes every day, because I don't recall 100%, but, working at that point, it was in August, working, 10, 12 hours a day, running a golf operation, you don't get a ton of time to practice and work on your game. And if you do, it's not like really solid focus time. So I felt like if I could get to the golf course, and even if I spent 12 hours there, at least I could be focused on practicing and kind of learning what these guys do. So yeah, I probably overdid it and spent a fair amount of time there, but it's something that I would do again in a heartbeat. 2014, a lot like what Mark said, tried to pace myself a little bit better. Probably didn't spend as much time at the course, but still felt like I felt I needed to play 18 holes a day just because I wanted to learn as much about the golf course as I could. Right. You're going to hit some shots in spots that you may not see if you're playing 9 holes and walking off the golf course. So I felt like the more I saw the golf course, the better idea I would have of how it was going to play or where I needed to play from, find some different lines, some different angles. So and much like Mark said, I didn't feel like I wore myself out. I actually enjoyed it and embraced it. And some of these senior events now that I play in, I'm a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser. I won't play 18 a day. I might play 18 on Monday, 9 on Tuesday, 9 on Wednesday, something like that. But I still feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the golf course at that point.
So, Dave, how did you feel like your game compared to the best players in the world, both in the PGA Championship, but maybe even more so now, having played in 2 U.S. Senior Opens and a bunch of senior PGAs? When you look at your game compared to the big boys on the tour, and then your game now compared to the Champions Tour players.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I thought I was going to be able to, compete with those guys on the PGA Tour when I, qualified for my first major and got there. And that was a pretty eye-opening experience when, I got to 16 at Valhalla and hit a really good drive and a 21-degree hybrid into the green. And then I turned the coverage on in the afternoon and watched McIlroy hit 3-wood 9-iron into the green. I was at, when I played my last PGA at Quail Hollow, same thing, the 9th hole, like 485, 500, slightly uphill tee shot. I'm hitting driver hybrid and I turned the coverage on, and I'll never forget McIlroy, Fowler, and somebody else were playing, and it was wet. They all hit driver 9-iron into the green. And so, I mean, that was pretty eye-opening. Like, no chance to compete with those guys, right? Not over the course of 36 or 72 holes. The Champions Tour is a little different. I felt like, especially, when I qualified for my first couple, that I was when I looked at the stats, I was probably in the top, 10% in driving distance out there and accuracy. And felt like at that point I had a fair amount of major championship golf at that level under my belt, where it wasn't an intimidating experience. So I think that was probably the most disappointing thing, that it took me 6 of those events to make a cut. I felt like, and still feel like, that I can play, if I play well out there, I feel like I could, compete, contend. And, I still feel like I got plenty of length, plenty of game to play out there. So, like, night and day, quite frankly. And when I qualified for my first PGA, I was 46, 47 years old. So, I mean, that's a pretty big leap. Braden, you're in your early mid-20s. I mean, that's a different animal, as opposed to being 51, 52, playing against 51 or 52-year-olds. So, I feel like it's a much narrower gap, let's say. That being said, those guys do that stuff for a living, and the guys on the Champions Tour have been doing it for 35, 40 years since they've been, high school and college, great players. So when you do something for that many hours a day, that long, it's just a learned skill and experience that, you can wake up in the morning and do it without even thinking about it. So I have no illusions that I'm a, top 10 player on the Champions Tour, but I feel like if I had a good week playing wise, I could fare pretty well against those guys.
Guys ever got to an event and said, this golf course really suits my eye and I feel like I'm going to play really good this week, and then maybe have a bad week, or vice versa, or not feel too comfortable with the golf course and end up playing very well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I won my first points event at Doylestown, which I never thought I was going to play worth a damn, and played great there one year. And so, I mean, yeah, and I don't know if we're talking about major championship golf or just, events in general, but yeah, I mean, I think that's, there are some golf courses that, I feel like I play well regularly. And then there's some golf courses I feel like I'm never going to play good at.
I thought I was. No,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Brent. Go ahead.
I generally feel like I'm never going to play well, that none of them fit my eye. So, like, dang, I hate all these holes.
No, you're certainly doing pretty good for not playing any golf courses that you don't feel like you play well.
So Braden, how was Oak Hill last year? How did it suit your eye? And, talk a little bit about, because it was interesting. It seemed like there was, the weather went through all 4 seasons up there last year. It was like one day was cold and windy. The next day, one day was hot, one was rainy, one was like good. How was your first PGA? How did the course look and feel to you? What were the conditions like for, to just like an inside look for our listeners, versus just watching it on television?
Yeah, I mean, my first day, my first round, we were first off because they pair up the National Club Pro champion with previous winner of the last PGA that was there, and then whoever won the senior PGA, which was so that was our group, and we went off first, and we had a 2-hour frost delay the first day because it was 38 degrees.
Ooh.
And I personally can't play when it's that cold, so I shot a million for the first 5 holes. I was like 6 over, like right off the bat. I ended up shooting 6 over that day once it warmed up enough, but I was done from the start when it's that cold. Second day I did a little better. I think I might have shot 72 or 73. That course was super hard. It was not a good golf course for me, but it helped me learn really quickly how bad I am at driving the golf ball. And a tournament like that on a course like that, it'll wake you up really quick. And the difference between a really good ball striker and a medium ball striker, the gap will be massive on a course like that. I mean, you guys Dave, you played in 11 majors, and Mark, you played in more than me. I played in 1. Okay, maybe exception, but just seeing how thick the rough was, how narrow the fairways are, it's just a matter of hitting the ball great and hitting it good. I mean, you can strategize your way around all you want, but if you're not hitting it good, it doesn't matter, because if you're hitting it in the rough, it's an automatic 1-stroke penalty. I mean, you can't play golf from the rough in a major championship. So I can try to decade my way around that place all I want and strategize to death, but it's not going to work if you're not hitting it straight. So you just got to be hitting it good, end of story. And that's kind of what I learned and took out of it. Hit it better.
Yeah, I think the most eye-opening thing for me playing major championship golf as opposed to playing section tournaments, and we have some great golf courses in our section, is the difficulty of the golf course. For example, when I played at Quail Hollow, they had just redone the golf course, and they changed the first few holes. And the first hole is a 510-yard dogleg right par 4, which used to be a par 4 and a par 3 before they redid the golf course. So, I mean, and you drive it out, there's a bunker on the left corner, and it's probably 270 or 280 to get to the corner of the dogleg. And the rough's, I thought the rough at Oak Hill was bad. This stuff was even worse. So you got to hit it 280 to get to the corner. If you hit it 310 in the right spot, it goes into the fairway bunker. So first hole, I hit a really good drive up the left side. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get to the fairway bunker. Well, of course it goes in the fairway bunker. Now I got 190 yards down the hill out of a fairway bunker. The other thing about that play is it seemed like the pin was on the left. The green would tilt right to left. And if you missed it right, which was the correct side to miss it on, you had plenty of green to work with, but you almost couldn't stop the ball because of the slope of the greens and the speed of the greens. So if you missed it in the correct spot, you were having a hard time keeping the ball on the green, let alone getting it close to the hole. You're almost better off short siding yourself. The other thing I notice a lot is, and you guys, Mark and Braden, both probably realize this, if you're hitting into a green, you know, most of the greens around here, you can hit it 20, 30 feet short, 20, 30 feet long and be okay. There's like a window of about 10 feet, 15 feet where you need to hit the ball and land the ball. And if you don't, you've got 40, 50 feet from a horrible spot. So the windows that you got to fit the ball in on the greens are much tighter, and the penalty for missing those areas. So what happened to me is now all of a sudden I got 154 to a left pin, and I'm going, well, if I hit it 152, it's not far enough. If I hit it 156, it's too far, which in reality probably wasn't the case. But you put so much pressure on yourself to hit, you know, the ball in such a small spot that it really makes it difficult to play golf, at least play aggressively, I think. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Wouldn't you say that's a big piece of high level golf is pin placements, hole location? I mean, Mark, look what they did at the US Open that, you know, that you guys had at Marion. You were the director of instruction there for 13 years. That was 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the golf course is not long for the big boys, right? I mean, there's a couple long holes, but I mean, green complexes and hole locations can totally transform, you know, from an average day to a championship caliber event.
If you're going to win out there, and it'd be interesting to hear, you know, Braden and Dave's opinion, you better take advantage of the par fives. You know, par threes, if you can make a par, you're picking up shots. Par fours, you know, I think par is a good score. Marion only has 2 par fives, you know, 2 and 4. And in Marion, there's a couple holes in the middle that are a little on the shorter side, but the first couple holes are pretty demanding, and the last couple holes are very demanding. And even the short holes, like Dave said, you have such small windows. And I was able to walk with some of the players and during the practice rounds, and I walked with Mickelson, and I specifically remember watching Phil walked up on hole number 8, and he stops dead in his tracks, and he looks over at Bones, and he said, you know what? You know, okay, so right here is the start of the downhill, so we need to know this number. So we need to take a couple steps back because we can't hit this downslope. And if the pin is front left and I'm on that downslope, I lose a half a shot to the field. If I'm back here too far back and the pin's back right, I'm going to spin it back. I probably lose a quarter shot to the field. It was amazing listening to him listen to Phil and Bones talk about they spent more time not so much hitting golf shots on hole number 8, but just strategizing. If the pin's there, we got to lay here so I don't spin it back too much. And like Dave said earlier, at number 8, you have a big bunker in front. You got a downhill lie in the back. Even though it's a 350-yard hole, it's so demanding. And you have to be so precise, and you need a certain distance to a tee shot, to a certain distance to a pin to give yourself a chance. So I think, Marion, won over par, Justin Rose won. And like Braden's, one thing that you're just talking to Braden is how important it is to hit a fairway. If you're going to play major championship golf, I'm going to echo Braden's words. You can't play out, and Dave, you can't play out of the rough because you can't control your spin. You can't control your trajectory. You can't predict what the ball's going to do. So if you're not hitting fairways, you lost control of your golf ball. And like Dave said, those windows on championship greens, the firmness, the speed, you lose control of the ball, and the score can just escalate into bogey golf, and you really didn't play that bad.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you cannot play out of that.
So here's the. Sorry.
No, you're good. You just can't play out of that rough, like Mark said. It's just if you can get it out, and if you can get the club on the back of the ball, which is fat chance, maybe 50% chance. If you can do that, and it lands on the green. I mean, it'll kill the greens are rolling 14.6. That ball ain't stopping out of the rough. And now it's going into a bunker. Now you're short sided. Now hopefully you make bogey. So, and if you didn't get the club on the back of the ball, you're short of the green. Now you're trying to get up and down from 70 yards to a tucked pin. It's like you just got to hit the fairway. And the big difference is like those fairways are so tight. They're rolling at like a freaking 8 or 9, the fairways. And then, if you hit it in that thick rough, you flare one into the rough and it goes 280. If you nut one down the middle of the fairway, it's going to roll 50 yards. And now that ball went 330. So now the difference between your ball in the rough and the ball that went in the fairway is 50 yards. So, I mean, that's like, you're either hitting a wedge or now you're hitting a 6-iron off. Like, you just got no chance, man. You got to hit the fairways.
And I mean, that's hard to do. That place, in much like Coyle Hollow, not only are the fairways narrow, but they slope opposite the direction you're trying to hit the ball. So you guys all played Oak Hill. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, the par 5. The dog leg right. There's a bunker on the corner, 2 bunkers on the corner, and it's 320, 310 to fly them, right? And you got to fly them, because if you don't, the fairway tilts right to left. So if you play away from the bunkers, that thing's just kicking in the freaking rough, and now you're trying to chop it out of the rough. It's a par 5, but you got oak trees on the right and left hand side of the fairway. It's just it seemed like every hole was, you wanted to hit it in the right side of the fairway. They had the best angle in, but the fairway tilted right to left. And if you played away from the trouble, you were going to be in the rough. And it's just hole after hole like that. It's crazy.
Dave, I laid up. I laid up. I didn't challenge that bunker, just so you know.
Because you're smarter than I am.
No, I don't have that gear.
So what would an average person shoot? Say, let's just pick on Oak Hill.
I mean, average is probably relative, but if you said you're your normal club golfer that's a 10 handicap, and I got to believe they'd have a hard time breaking 90, 95, if they played really well.
And that's counting every shot.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, if they gave me how many fairways they hit on a regular course, a percentage, I could tell you what they'd shoot, because the average 10 or 18 handicap, they're not getting it. If they get it out of that rough and get it back into the fairway, that'd be a miracle. So I mean, it would just, as soon as they miss a fairway, you're looking at triple, double, triple every time they do that. So gosh, I mean, that score could get for a 10 handicap would be easily, I think, in the 90s, like Dave said. 18 handicap, not breaking 100.
I'm thinking 90 if they're playing from the tees they should be playing from. If they're playing from
70, not from the back tees.
No, Michael means though, Dave. Michael means like in a major at Oak Hill with those conditions. What do you think an average golfer would
from the back tees?
Not breaking
from the championship tees.
And maybe they might not even break 100 from their own tees, right? Maybe
it would be a challenge, I think. Counting them all.
They might not finish. They might run out of balls.
Yeah.
Wow.
Honestly.
All right. So here's the last question, and Braden, you'll be left out of this one. Not because you're the youngest, but because you're still really like working on your game and trying to make some cool things happen. But this would be for Mark and Dave. Knowing what you know today, both as a teacher and a professional and someone who's a very good player, knowing what you know today, do you think you could go back in time and give the tour a decent run?
I do.
Dave, go
you
first.
Do?
Yeah, I do. But I mean, we'd have to go back to when I was probably early 20s.
Yeah, that's okay. Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I first got in the golf business, which was 93, let me think for a minute. Yeah, 93, when I first got in the golf business. I mean, I was probably a solid 6-7 handicap. I was going to shoot mid to high 70s, probably on average. And I was fortunate to work at a place where, I could play and practice a little bit. But I mean, I still took, it wasn't like I was playing and practicing all day. I was, after work at 5, 6 o'clock, I'd go hit balls, and made myself into a pretty good player over time. So I feel like, had I played college golf competitively and knowing what I know now as a professional and having competed in events, if I knew what I knew and how to practice, how to play, how to swing the golf club, at 20 in college or 18 in high school, and had the time and the wherewithal, the courses to play and the competition. I feel like but it's a game of, first of all, it's a young guy's game now, but it's also a game of you gotta put the time in. I don't care what anybody says. You can't practice for a couple hours a day and be one of the top players in the game. You just can't do it. I mean, you look at the time that Tiger Woods put in, and any of these guys, all these guys they're grinding it out and barely making it. They're 10, 12, 14 hours a day working on their golf game. So, I didn't have that ability growing up, and I played golf. I like to play golf. I played it recreationally. So I think if given the time, I certainly would have liked to see what could have happened.
Mark, what about you?
I think I would have. I mean, I was pretty good. I was pretty darn good ball striker. My strength was my driver. I was a very good iron player. I worked very, very hard on my wedges. I just never got it done with the putter. And I think with the length, I think I was at the one stage, I was average length. Probably should have spent a little more time regimenting my practice a little different. Probably should have played more. Probably should have put more pressure in my practice. Did way too much block practice. If I had to do it again, I would have spent more time on the golf course. That's when I saw a big difference in my game. Get off the range more and learn how to play. I wish things like learning how to read a yardage book and navigate through a golf course a little more strategic would have been. I wish I would have had that ability. From a ball striking level, yes, I think I could have made it out there. From a putting level, that I was weak there. But Dave's right. Probably one of my things that I did, I practiced a lot. I put a lot of time and effort into my game, and there's no faking it. You get exposed when you play tournament golf, and I put my heart and soul into it. I sacrificed my entire 20s into playing professional golf, and I played at a very high level, and never made it on tour. Gave it a good run. Played in a lot of competition, but there's a couple things I would have done different, but I have no regrets. And people have to understand, when you talk about the PGA Tour, you're talking about less than 1% of the world. The players out there, you're talking about Europe, South Africa, Australia, America, Asia. So you're talking about 150 spots for the entire world. So when I do work with my junior players and their goal is to make professional golf their living, you need to give them a taste of reality that, okay, you're talking about playing against the best. We need to do this right. You need to develop distance. You better have the work ethic. You better have a little bit of a killer instinct in you. And you need to learn. You need to have a mindset that, failure can lead to success. You've got to learn from your mistakes and get stronger with each round, and really learn. If you have a blow up round, learn from it. Don't beat yourself up, which is easier said than done. But it's a great question, John. But again, you're talking about the elite of the elite of the elite, and you need to be good.
I remember when I was fortunate to work for Jim McLean down at Doral for 3 years, and a lot of tour guys would come in and out of the golf school at Doral, and Jim worked with a lot of different players over the years, but one guy he worked with regularly was Lenny Matisse.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Lenny came to one of our staff meetings and said that in the phone book, he found Sam Snead's phone number in West Virginia and called Sam Snead up on the phone. His number was listed. and he said, "Hey, Mr. Sneed, I'm an aspiring tour player. What do you think I need to do? What should I work on?" And Sam Sneed's response was, "There's not enough time in the day to get better."
Hey, John,
Right? It's
John,
just so true.
John, can I tell a quick story?
Sure.
So I was playing.
As long as it's quick.
I'll be quick. So I was playing in a practice round, second stage U.S. Open with Jonathan Bird and Lucas Glover. And at Woodmont North, there's a hole, I forget it was with 13 or 14. The hole goes out about 230 yards and it makes this 90-degree dog leg left up a hill. And I still remember it. Lucas Glover hit this shot. It was probably one of the most impressive golf shots I ever saw. So I hit 3-wood down to the corner. Lucas hits this shot. It goes down to the corner, makes a dog leg left, and it goes up the damn hill. I saw that, and I said, "What the hell was that?" I'm like, what did I just witness? And how in God's name did you just make the golf ball go out to about 210 yards, hook left? He's got 140 yards in. I got 210 yards in because I'm just playing down to the corner. I saw him do that, and I said, "Okay, this is another league."
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many pieces of the puzzle that go into getting out there, and you could practice all day, every day. You could be great at a lot of things. Yeah, I was thinking about this today. Like, you could be the best at everything, ball striking, putting, chipping, but if you don't have the mental capacity to deal with all the shit that comes your way during the round of golf, or even after golf, that's one piece of the puzzle. You might as well just pack it in. I mean, there's so many things that you have to be good at. It's really, really hard to make it out there.
Yeah. And like you said, the best players in the world at every sport make it look easier than it is.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, you just see it all the time. Like ice hockey is a prime example. TV doesn't do ice hockey justice, right?
Yeah.
You go sit on the glass and you watch those guys play a game, and it's just ridiculous. Not only the skating, and then the puck handling and everything else on top of it, right? I mean, it's the same thing with the PGA Tour guys. I mean, and even the lowest level guy on the Korn Ferry Tour is just a fantastic world-class golfer.
Yep.
So, well, guys, this was fun. Also, just a reminder to our listeners, the Philly Foursome is all over social media. You can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and our subscription channel on Patreon. If you are a consumer of golf videos and you like to nerd out and geek out and learn, Michael Little has a bunch of awesome putting stuff. Mark Sheftick has a bunch of body movement and ground force content. Braden Shattuck is our course management, strategy, and decade golf aficionado, and I'll put out some full swing content. So be sure to check us out. And a big thanks to our special guest, Mr. Dave McNabb. Dave, thanks for being with us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's always good to catch up with you guys, and love to come back anytime you'll have me.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously, we're the Philly Foursome, so we want to at least have some of our content stay in the family here locally in the greater Philadelphia area and support the Philadelphia PGA. We're actually going to be, the four of us are going to be presenting next Monday at the Philadelphia Assistants Association spring meeting. They've asked us to talk, so we're going to give the assistant pros in our area a little bit of knowledge, and we're looking forward to that. So, all right, guys, great to be with you. And we look forward to being with all of you, the listeners, on episode number 5 coming up soon. Take care.